A swing set, once a place of endless laughter, where childhood dreams took flight with every kick of tiny feet. It stood as a symbol of innocence, of carefree afternoons filled with joy. But now it sways in eerie silence, a ghost of what it used to be. This is no longer just a playground, it is a memorial, a haunting echo of a life stolen too soon. 10-year-old Victoria Martens should have been here, her laughter mixing with the wind, her dreams stretching as high as the sky. Instead, her memory lingers in the quiet, in the emptiness that now surrounds this place. A single purple balloon, tied to the frame, trembles in the breeze, a heartbreaking reminder of a light that was cruelly extinguished. This is more than just a story. This is a tragedy that shook a community, a crime that shattered innocence. On the morning of August 24, 2016, a concerned neighbor made a call that would lead to one of the most horrifying discoveries in recent memory. Authorities in Albuquerque, New Mexico, arrived at an apartment complex, unaware that they were about to uncover a scene of almost unimaginable brutality. Smoke billowed from the apartment as officers forced their way inside, bracing themselves for the unknown. What they found would forever haunt them. In the bathroom, a smoldering blanket lay in the bathtub. Beneath it, the dismembered remains of a young girl. In the living room, a trash bag containing internal organs, lungs, kidneys, further pieced together a nightmarish puzzle. The victim was soon identified as 10-year-old Victoria Martens, a seemingly normal family, hiding a sinister secret. As investigators worked to make sense of the horror before them, they turned their attention to the 3 adults who lived in the apartment. Victoria's mother, 35-year-old Michelle Martens, had resided there with her daughter. Also living in the home was Michelle's boyfriend, Fabian Gonzales, and his cousin, Jessica Kelley. As the initial shock gave way to cold, methodical questioning, a horrifying reality emerged. Michelle Martens, who had appeared to be a caring mother, had, in reality, opened the door to unimaginable evil. She had met Fabian Gonzales online just weeks before the murder. Despite his disturbing past, including a history of violent offenses, child abuse allegations, and criminal activity, Michelle welcomed him into her home, allowing him access to her young daughter. Within a month, Fabian moved in, embedding himself into Victoria's life. Shortly thereafter, he introduced his cousin, Jessica Kelley, a convicted felon recently released from prison. Kelley had an extensive criminal record and a long history of substance abuse. Just 8 days after she entered their home, the unthinkable happened. What should have been a safe haven for Victoria was, in reality, a house of horrors. The decisions made by her mother, whether out of desperation, naivety, or something far more sinister, had placed her daughter in harm's way, ultimately leading to her brutal and senseless murder. The interrogation of Michelle Martens commenced with an air of tension. At first, she attempted to present herself as a devastated mother, overwhelmed by grief and fear. However, seasoned detectives quickly saw through her facade. Their suspicions grew as they questioned her about Victoria's birthday, which had been just the day before the horrific events unfolded. Michelle spoke of plans for a small celebration, a gathering with friends, cake, and laughter. She reminisced about Victoria's love for math and gymnastics, painting a picture of a vibrant young girl with a promising future. Yet, something about her demeanor was off. Instead of displaying genuine sorrow, Michelle seemed preoccupied with her own well-being and that of her young son, Matthew. She repeatedly voiced concerns that Fabian Gonzales and Jessica Kelley would return and harm her, casting herself as a victim rather than taking accountability for her role in the tragedy. As the interrogation continued, inconsistencies in Michelle's account became glaringly evident. She initially claimed Victoria had come home from a friend's house before heading straight to bed. She insisted she had checked on her twice, each time finding her daughter breathing normally. Yet, moments later, She contradicted herself, stating that Fabian had gone to check on Victoria and informed her that the child was no longer breathing. Michelle hesitantly mentioned a bag sitting on the coffee table, speculating that Victoria might have ingested something harmful. She referenced a knife and claimed Fabian had spoken of disposing of the body. When pressed further on why she hadn't contacted the authorities immediately, she offered a vague and unsettling response. "I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to call the cops." Detectives, undeterred by her evasiveness, pushed harder. "There's another reason you didn't call the police, though, isn't there?" one detective challenged. As the pressure mounted, Michelle's statements grew more fragmented, her responses more unconvincing. When finally asked, "What part did you take in that act?" her chilling revelations would leave the detectives stunned and the entire state horrified. The interrogation transcripts captured the disturbing details of Michelle's involvement, exposing her attempts to shift blame, her deliberate omissions, and ultimately, her confession. A confession that painted a grotesque picture of betrayal, abuse, and unimaginable cruelty. As investigators continued to piece together the events of that fateful night, conflicting narratives emerged, further complicating an already harrowing case. Michelle's version of events sharply contrasted with other testimonies, particularly that of Jessica Kelley. Jessica put forth an entirely different story, one that introduced an unknown, enigmatic figure. According to her, a mysterious man had arrived at the apartment searching for Fabian. Failing to locate him, this unidentified individual had allegedly entered Victoria's room, committing the horrific acts that led to her death. The emergence of this so-called mystery man introduced a new layer of uncertainty. Was he a genuine suspect, or merely a fabricated scapegoat designed to mislead investigators and obscure the truth? The interrogations of Fabian Gonzales and Jessica Kelley remained sealed from the public, leaving many questions unanswered. Without access to their full statements, speculation ran rampant, fueling theories about what really transpired behind closed doors. Despite the shifting stories and deliberate deception, forensic evidence and crime scene analysis began to reveal the grim reality of what had taken place. The collected evidence, combined with Michelle's own words, painted an appalling picture of neglect, abuse, and ultimately, a brutal murder. The authorities worked tirelessly to uncover the truth, yet certain aspects of the case remained veiled in secrecy. The question of the mysterious man loomed large. Was he a convenient fabrication, a phantom conjured to divert blame? Or did he truly exist, eluding justice while the primary suspects bore the brunt of the legal consequences? The search for him persisted, a lingering shadow over an already devastating case. Following an extensive investigation and a highly publicized trial, Michelle Martens was sentenced to 12 years in prison. However, the verdict was met with widespread outrage. Many members of the public viewed the sentence as far too lenient, arguing that her actions, or lack thereof, had directly contributed to Victoria's horrific fate. The perceived miscarriage of justice ignited heated debates, with citizens demanding harsher penalties for those complicit in crimes against children. Fabian Gonzales, after striking a plea deal, admitted to reckless child abuse resulting in death and tampering with evidence. His punishment was significantly steeper, 37.5 years behind bars. Meanwhile, Jessica Kelley, believed to be the one who delivered the fatal blow, pleaded guilty to second-degree murder, child abuse resulting in death, and evidence tampering. She received the harshest sentence of all, 44 years in prison. Yet despite the convictions, many remained unsatisfied. For Victoria, a bright and innocent child who had suffered unimaginable torment, no sentence could undo the horror she had endured. People questioned whether justice had truly been served or whether the system had, once again, failed to adequately protect the most vulnerable among us. The case of Victoria Martens left an indelible mark on the community, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk behind closed doors. The legal proceedings had reached their conclusion, but the echoes of Victoria's tragic story persisted. Advocates for child welfare demanded reforms, pushing for stricter laws and harsher punishments for those who enable or commit crimes against children. The search for absolute truth continued, as did the lingering doubts surrounding the case. And in the background, the question remained: who was the mystery man? And would justice ever catch up to him? Victoria Martens' story is a heartbreaking tragedy that should never have happened, but must never be forgotten. At just 10 years old, she was full of love, joy, and innocence. Her radiant smile could brighten any room, and she was cherished by all who knew her. The world failed her, and the pain of that failure lingers in the hearts of many. As the case concludes, the public is left with sorrow, anger, and lingering questions. Every child deserves love and protection, but does every parent deserve a child? How did the system allow this to happen? And what of the mysterious man? The search for truth continues, leaving a community desperate for answers, haunted by what remains unknown. Victoria should not be remembered solely for the horror of her death, but for the light she brought to the world. A memorial covered in flowers, candles, and messages stands as a symbol of love, grief, and remembrance. Friends, family, and strangers gather, sharing stories of her laughter and kindness, holding on to the memories that remain. In grief, there is also resolve. The fight for justice, reform, and stronger child protections continues. Though Victoria's life was stolen far too soon, her memory will not fade. It will serve as a call to action, a demand for change, so that no other child suffers as she did. What are your thoughts on this case? Let us know in the comments below.